When you hear comments like that, it rubs you the wrong way. And I'm certainly not trying to imply that Brett Favre meant anything racial. I'm not implying that at all. I understand that what he was saying about Deshaun Watson, he would say about anybody playing that position, anybody making money, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe I shouldn't have brought up Southern Mississippi at all. But what I will say is that it rubbed me the wrong way because, basically you're saying you signed a contract, you're getting money, shut up and play. That's not too far removed from Laura Ingraham saying, shut up and dribble. That's not too far from people who have the mentality that you are an athlete, and so entertain us on the court or the field of play, and don't bother expressing your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions about anything else. Now, in defense of Brett Favre, what I will say is that I don't think he meant anything malicious, and I also think what he said is something he would say applies to him as well. But I do think it's important to recognize the times that we're living in, number one. The things that have been highlighted and illuminated, particularly in the last year and specifically in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing. The fact that you see an inordinate amount of black folks, particularly black athletes, that have taken the position and felt the need to speak out and to address issues that are pertinent to the very community, the disenfranchised communities from which we came from, and things of that nature. To know all of that and to see what has transpired over the last year and to say something along those lines about Deshaun Watson, you think he makes too much money to voice an opinion? I mean, that's pretty damn close to insane as far as I'm concerned. For something like that to come out of Brett Favre's mouth in this particular day and age. Again, I'm not accusing him of being malicious in any way, Max. But I will say this. I think that thought process is a bit ass backwards. And I think that Brett Favre's come across as looking a bit ass backwards to say something like that in this day and age, particularly considering what we've just witnessed in our nation transpire over the last few months. There are people that have brought up and made comparisons to the civil rights era because of the things that we saw going on throughout the streets of America over the last year. How Brett Favre can say something like this, to me, is mind-boggling.
I was not surprised by it. First of all, Brett Favre said, I think we make too much money to voice an opinion.
Yes, he did.
So he's including himself with
That's
Deshaun Watson. In other words, players. And there's always been an element, even among the workforce, even among the people who self-identify as working class, that don't and that are in fact based on socioeconomic standing, that believe that labor should stay in its place. And that, especially if you're being paid well, oh my God, Mr. So-and-so gave me this enormous check, and once upon a time, Stephen A., not just like along racial lines, shut up and dribble, which always had those kind of undertones, but once upon a time, Joe DiMaggio was reviled, and other white players in baseball were reviled because they would hold out for more money. And the press, by and large, and who do you think owns the major media outlets? The moneyed interests, right? And the press reflected their sentiments, and sometimes maybe their own sentiments about staying in their own place. Who are they to hold out? They're making $100,000 to play a child's game. Well, let me ask Brett Favre something. Are the owners making too much money to voice an opinion? Because they're making a lot more than the players. Let's not act as though players rolled out of bed one day and hit the lottery. They got lucky. No. Were they born with physical genetic advantages? Undoubtedly, but not everyone who was born taller or faster or stronger makes the NFL. They've put a lifetime of work, dedication, passion to become one of the best in the world in one of the most competitive industries in the world, where almost everyone who can play is playing. And and someone like Deshaun Watson has elevated himself to where he's so important that he has some leverage. But he shouldn't be quiet. He's making too much to voice an opinion. Are the owners making too much? The owners have leveraged their businesses and relationships for a seat at the table of power. The players, because they're not as powerful, because they don't start out as rich, have leveraged their union to collectively bargain for a seat at the table. And the superstar players also leverage their incredible importance to their teams to have more power than just another player and to be able to voice their opinions. And we've seen it in the NBA and now increasingly in the NFL to even demand or at least steer trades and kind of put their hands on their future and control their destiny more than in the past. Stephen A., I'm unsurprised that some elements come out. Apparently, Favre thought of himself as the hired help and say and echo this sentiment that we've seen throughout American sports history. You're the hired help. Curt Flood, what are you agitating for? You're making so much more money than you would in a regular
Oscar
job.
Robertson.
Just be happy with it. Wait a minute. Right, same thing. Wait a minute. Why should I accept the people who pay me have made their fortunes on the free market, but now they want to stop the free market forces from me getting paid what I'm worth? No. And those people, the Curt Floods, have been vilified throughout American sports history, oftentimes by players who are in their same position. Stephen A., again, I think we make too much money to voice an opinion. Favre's including himself.
He is including himself, which is what I pointed out with my initial diatribe. But what I would say to you is that what he revealed is that he's a bigger part of the problem that exists in professional sports, because we assume on a lot of occasions, not you and I, but I'm talking generically speaking, as a society, we assume that the players are on one side and management, owners, executives on another. But you do have people on the labor side, you do have people on this side that essentially think like the folks upstairs want them to think. And what I'm saying is that's not always a bad thing. Please don't get me wrong. I'm about winning. If you're about winning, okay, and we're about the bottom line, I have no problem with you aligning yourself with folks upstairs, because the objective and the agenda is the same as it pertains to the bottom line. But when it involves something like this, players are getting paid too much money to voice an opinion. Mm-hmm. When you say something like that, that goes beyond that. That's not about labor. That's not about CBAs. That's not about anything. That's about a mentality of thinking of yourself and others as sheer labor who should be grateful for what they have, as opposed to being appreciated for what they have earned. And I'm very, very disturbed that Brett Favre would say what he said, not just about everybody else, like you said, himself as well. And I'm not attaching any kind of racial connotation to Brett Favre by saying that in terms of his intent. I'm simply saying that as a black man, to hear you say that, knowing the times that we're living in right now, is incredibly alarming that something like that will come out of Brett Favre's mouth.
No question. I think you said it perfectly, Stephen A. We do have to go. I think he was trying to say we should be grateful for what we have perspective. We have it so much better than other people. But with big paychecks comes big responsibility. And no one should tolerate disrespect in any capacity. And speaking of assuming, we shouldn't be doing that. That's one of the 4 agreements. We will leave it there. When we come back here on First Take, fellas, plenty more to debate. Panther star running back Christian McCaffrey makes his Super Bowl prediction when he joins us live next.